Sport Fishing on the Fly is brought to you by Maui Jim Sunglasses. First Tellurium Corp., the future of mining. And Hardy Rods and Reels.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Rick Passek, the Fly Fishing Fanatic, and welcome to another edition of On the Bench with Sport Fishing on the Fly. Today, a little dry fly mayfly pattern. It's kind of, it can be taken as more than a mayfly, but it is a mayfly pattern. That's what I mostly fish it as. I've got COVID right now, so hopefully I don't cough too much during the video, but if I do, I apologize. Let's get her going. So, today in the vise we have a Hends BL254N in a size 8. If you've got any dry fly hooks, I ran out of my dry fly thin wire hooks, but this will do. The CDC that's in this one will really allow this thing to float high. So that's the hook for thread. I'm going to be using some Zemperfly Nano Silk in olive. For the tail, I'll be using just a few fibers of this Coq de Leon Pardo color. So just a few of the fibers, not very many. For the body, I'll be using some Semperfly Dry Fly Polyyarn in gold and olive. For the rib of the body, some Semperfly Hollow Tinsel, Mirror Tinsel, 169th. This is the narrow one. For the wing, I'll be using some Hends Olive CDC. And this will also be for the legs, if you want to call it that. And then for the parachute portion of it, or the parachute portion, I'm going to be using some yellow CDC just to stand out, right? So this is a little bit of a longer tie, so hopefully we can get this pounded through fairly quick. We'll see. So start off by waxing your thread. If you're using any type of the Nano Silk, GSP, anything like that, wax your thread before you put it on the hook. It just helps bind to that hook a little bit better. Just wind this off. Don't go around the bend. So roughly where your barb would be if you had a barbed hook, maybe a little bit forward of that. You don't want to. You definitely don't want to go past that bend. So now I'm going to go about there. I want to leave about 2 to 3 hook eyes space for my my wing and my parachute posts and stuff. So now I'm going to take 3 or 4 of these Coq de Leon, and I want it about as long as the body, so about there. Come back right to there, and I'm going to do a pinching wrap. So I'm going to pinch that in between my fingers and bring that down. A couple of wraps just to see how long that is. It's not bad. A couple of them look like they may have pulled shorter, so I'm going to see if I can pull them out just to match that length. There we go. So I'm just going to bring that forward a bit. Cut that off roughly where your body's going to end. And just wrap that on. And then come back a little bit. Now I'm going to take my mirror tinsel. This is absolutely great stuff. I love this mirror tinsel from Semperfly. But you do have to be a little bit lighter handed on it. A little bit gentler. It is pretty fragile. All these mirror tinsels are. So, but the effect you get from this is just standout. You'll see, it really shows, but it adds no weight. That's why I'm not using a wire. I'm not using a wire in this because I don't want to add any weight to it, right? So now my dry fly polyyarn. Now you can use. In this pattern, I've used the dry fly polyyarn and I've used the Kapok dubbing, which is also floats forever and a day. But just for ease, this dry fly polyyarn is amazing. Oh. Again, I'm making sure I stop and leaving room to build that front section. in touching wraps. I don't want to make this body too thick. One more there. Tie that off. Cut off your excess. I'm just going to give this vise just a turn here just so I can just nip off. Make sure I've got that cleaned up at the front there. There we go. Some of these really long scragglers as well. Then I'm going to take my Mirage Tinsel and I'm going to counter wrap. I said it just gives a really nice little effect, adds just that little bit of sparkle to this pattern. You don't want a ton, you want this more natural, right? So it just adds just that little tiny bit of an attractor. So now I'm going to find myself a couple of pieces of the olive CDC. I don't need too much here. I just want a hint of a wing going back here. It's kind of I know some people are going to say, oh yeah, but it's set more in a caddis wing style, which it is. But once the rest of this fly is done, it definitely will look more mayfly-ish when I'm finished here. I just got to find the right pieces of CDC. Excuse me for digging here, but got to make sure you get the right ones. I did have a couple out, but I didn't. Once I took a closer look at them, I didn't really like them. They were a little too blunt. The cutoff of it was too blunt. I want this to look natural, right? So that one might be nice. That one might be nice. And one more. And that one there. Okay, so I want just a bit of a wing going back. I don't want it to go back too far here. About there. So I'm just going to tie that in right about there. Nice and tight. Lift up and cut off this excess. Quite often I'll keep that and I'll use it for the next stage. Well, not the next stage, but the stage after that. Just come back a little bit. Just so that's in there. Now, I'm going to grab 2 to 3 of those yellow. Now, this is going to be tied in parachute style, but it's going to act really only as an indicator. That's all it really is going to act, so you can see this fly. It's not really for the actual look of the pattern. It's more just so you can see this thing, especially if you're fishing it in rougher, choppier waters. I want to be able to see this thing. I want this thing to stand out. So I'm going to get 3 to 4 nice feathers here. I want a fairly decent sized wing post here. So I'm taking 4 here. And I want it about the same length as that wing, roughly, maybe a little bit longer. I'm going to tie that in nice and tight. It's one of the good things about using this Nano silk. You can really crank down on it. Cut away that waste. Okay, now what I like doing here is I like putting a half hitch in or a whip finish, just so I don't lose the thread, because I'm going to turn this in the vise now. I'm going to actually let this go in the vise, and I'm going to turn this way. I'll have to adjust my camera. Hopefully you guys... There we go. I'll adjust my camera just a little bit for it. So now I'm going to just take only that yellow wing. Don't worry if there's a little bit of stragglers here and there. They will add to the pattern, but you don't want to do what I just did there and catch in that green. So what you can do, if you want to just slick that green back a bit, Just get it out of the way. And like I said, if you get the odd yellow one in the wing or the odd green one into the post, it's not going to be terrible, but just do your best at trying to separate them. Got one little green one there that's not cooperating with me, but just going to make a little bit of a parachute post here. And it like I said, it's not a pretty fly. It's very buggy. This fly ends up being extremely buggy looking. So it does take a bit of patience, which I started doing this video up and told the wife which one I was going to do, and she's like, really? When you got COVID right now, you're going to try to tie a more technical fly, especially with your patience level the way it is right now? But yep, I did. Dummy. So back up into the regular position. I'm going to put the camera back again if I can without doing anything dumb. There we go. See? So now, leave that like it is. I'm going to just counterclockwise twist to my thread. I'm going to find myself 3 to 4 nice, fairly long CDC feathers here. They don't have to be crazy long, but we want them to be long enough that they're going to stand out for legs. That's what this next step is here. So there's 2. I'm going to find one more if I can. Yeah, there we go. One more with nice long filaments here. And just getting them stacked sometimes can be a bit of a bugger because as they sit in the bag, they kind of want to go all over the place, right? So there we go. Let's see if I can just pull that one out just a bit. So I've got them stacked up into my little stacker. Just cutting them off of the center stem. So now, just going to make sure that this is untwisted. Do a split thread technique. You can do a dubbing loop if you'd like, but I find the split thread technique just a little bit nicer for this. In it goes. Catch that in, just spread that out just ever so slightly. Pinch, spin your bobbin. Give it a really good spin clockwise now, because you unspun it counterclockwise, right? So there we go. There's one. Do it again. And then I like just taking my brush and just making sure those are out. Now I'll just give this a bit of a twist again. Adjust my camera again. And then I'm just going to go right onto that post with this material. Run right through that material there. Okay, and then I'll just put this back up one more time. Move this all forward. Build up a little bit of a head there, just a little bit. Again, move all this material back, build up a bit of a head. Put a little bit of head cement on if you remember, which I just forgot, but that's okay. And now I'm going to hold that post, and I'm just going to brush all that CDC that I just put in there, that green. I'm going to brush that down. Turn. Same thing, hold that post, brush that down. Okay, and then you can take that post and just cut that a little shorter, about by half, because you just want that sticking out. Like I said, it's more of just an indicator for you, right? When you see that, it's just an indicator. So that is it. Like I said, it's really buggy looking. You can shorten up some of these legs; they're a little long, but don't go crazy. You want this thing to. Or let's see if I can focus in on that from the bottom for you guys. There, you want that really buggy like that, right? You can see those legs are all over the place. You can actually even, make that just a little more buggy by, really pulling those out of there. But that's back to focus. That's it. That's the finished little fly. Like I said, it's not very pretty, but it is extremely successful. This thing works really well. Buggy. Floats all day long with that dry fly polyyarn, and then all that CDC in there. It'll float forever. Just take care of it. Make sure you dry it out when you can. Have 5 or 6 of them in your box. Switch them up. This one is a fairly large, size 8. I usually tie them at a 10-12. I just wanted to tie a little larger for you guys, just a little easier to see on the camera. But try not to leave the one last point. Try not to leave the post too visible. If you look at it from the underside, you can't really see that yellow very much, so that's a good thing. But it's just for me to be able to see it better floating in the water. So, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that one. And thanks for watching another episode of On the Bench, Sport Fishing on the Fly.